Step by step from scratch, we're going to learn how to create this beautiful and modern looking dashboard in Excel. First of all, we have here a slicer where we can choose a criteria such as 2024, 25, or 26 to automatically filter the entire dashboard. We also have a card that can display the total sold, and doesn't matter what type of data set you are using because everything is going to work despite the data set that you are using. So everything is going to start with a raw data set, and then we're going to transform the data set, the report that we have, into a table in Excel because the table has many different benefits that I'm going to show you in the video. And then we can move on and create some analysis using the pivot tables in Excel to organize and summarize the data set, the table that we have. And finally, we can create the dashboard itself. And in this case, I'm using a map chart, a bar chart, a combo chart, that is a line chart coupled with a column chart and a column chart and a card and a slicer to help me filter automatically the entire dashboard. So step by step from scratch, let's learn how can we do it. Let's go. To create any type of dashboard in Excel, the first thing that we need to have is a data set, the informations that we want to use in the dashboard. And you don't need to use the same spreadsheet that I'm using here, the same report. You can use your own data. However, if you want to download this Excel file for free, just click in the link in the description down below. Basically, here I have a sales report with informations such as the date, the salesperson, the customer name, the quantity sold, the product name, the total sold, the margin, the rate, and also the state. So because now we already have the first step done, we can move on to the second step, that is to transform the data set into a table. However, I think before we do transform this data set into a table in Excel, that is optional, okay? You don't need to transform the data set into a table, but I'm gonna show you why it's very important and also show some benefits. However, before we do it, let's make some change in the format of our data. As we can notice, in the first column, I have the date. However, tell me, what is this date right here? I don't know because the format is not even close to the one that we are used to. So what we can do is, let me select the first column, and in the Home tab, I can go to General and change to Short Date. Now we have here a more precise way to see dates in Excel. The salesperson is right, the customer too, the quantity, the product, the total. In the total, maybe it's a good idea to format as currency, maybe dollars or any other type of currency. So let me select this entire column and go to underneath the General tab, select here the currency, the dollar sign. Yeah, now it's correct. The column G, where I have the margins, we can transform to percentage. And if you want to increase the preciseness, instead of using 0 decimal places, you can use 1 or 2 or so forth. I want to keep up with 2. Now all the rest of columns are right. So let me click within the dataset and go to the second step, that is to transform this dataset into a table. So insert and then table. And remember, this step is optional. However, I'm going to show the benefits to do a table in Excel. Where is the data for your table? Okay, it's correct, the range. And yes, my table has headers. So click OK, and we're done. So this is our table. You can also change the design of the table, going to the table design and choose different styles, maybe some yellow color, blue, orange, and so forth. For some reason in my Excel, as you can notice, this header right here and also this one right here, the font is black. I don't know why. So let me select all the header, the first row, and change the color to white. Okay, now it's correct. Another thing that we can do is select all the columns that we have, and in between one column to another, double click to automatically change the width of those columns. And the way everything is properly correct. Yeah, that's it. Now it's correct. Now that we're done with the first and the second step, we can move on to the third one, that is to create pivot tables in Excel to help us create analysis and also to summarize our data. However, let me show you some benefits to use a table in Excel. As I said before, A table has many benefits, such as whenever you have new informations, let me input here a new line of information with a new date, and then I'm gonna hit enter. And as we can notice, this new information now is automatically included into the table itself. So this is one of the benefits to use a table in Excel. Whenever you input new data, those new rows are going to automatically be included in the table itself. Let me get rid of this row right here, delete, yeah, that's it. And because of that, it's very easy to update the dashboard when we have a table. Now, anyway, let's go to insert again and click pivot table. With this new window that's going to open up for us, we don't need to change anything, just click OK. And that way, Excel is going to create a new sheet with the pivot table tool. However, let me take this new sheet, click, hold, and drag and move to the right just to organize it differently. Now right click on the sheet 1 and then go to rename. Here is where we're going to create our analysis, our summary, or we're going to summarize the data, but I'm going to keep the pivot table as the name. Enter. Here to the left, we can see the pivot table itself. And here to the right, we can see the pivot table fields. And basically, the options that we have are the same as our columns. So date, salesperson, customer, all the headers that we have are here in the options. Now, underneath, we have the filters, the rows, the columns, and the values. All those 4 different areas can be used to create the analysis. So the first analysis that we can create, let's say, I want to know what is the total sold, or what is the average margin, or we can do something more that requires more dexterity, such as what is the average margin throughout the months per salesperson. So as we can see, I can increase the complexity of the question of the analysis. That way, the pivot table is very handy to help us create those analyses, to summarize, and also to organize in a different way the data set. And as I said, the first example, let's start with something more broad, such as take the total, click, hold, and drag, and drop within the values area. Now we are going to have as result the sum of total. And as we can notice right here, this is the total. I can even click within the cell and change the format to a currency one, like this, 1.4 millions roughly. So this is the total sold. Okay, this is our first analysis that we did with pivot tables in Excel. If you want to create another pivot table, instead of go back and do all the steps again, insert, pivot table, and so forth, we can easily select this pivot table right here, right click, copy, go to the right click, and then we can paste. Simple as that. Now, I don't want to have anymore only the sum, the addition of the total. However, I want to see in each one of the rows a different region, let's say. So let me take here the region or the state, click, hold, and drag, and drop within the rows. And we go back here, I have all the states that I have in my data set, and all the sales for each one of those states. Another thing that we can do with a pivot table in Excel is, let's say I have in my data set many different dates from 2024 to 2026, so 3 different years. What I can do is I can easily separate or filter my data set based on this criteria, the years. But before we do it, let's do something else. Let me select again this pivot table right here. Actually, we can get rid of this grand total because I don't want to use a grand total in my pivot table. I think it's not important because we already have this information right here. So let me right click in this pivot table and then go to pivot table options. I want to get rid of the total and filters and show grand total for rows, not for rows, and not for columns. Now let me go back here to layout and format, and I also want to uncheck this checkbox right here. So unmark the autofill column widths on update. Yeah, that's it. Let me select everything, right click, copy, go here to the right click, and then paste. Now the new information that I want to see, let me click on the state and then remove field. I want to have the date. Click, hold, and drag and drop within the rows area. Now, as we can notice, we're going to have the years, the quarters, the months, and the date itself. It means that if we go here to the pivot table, we can specify our date into months or days, months, quarters, and years. But let's say it's not that important for me to see all those options. The only thing that I want to see is the months from January to December. So let me go back here to the rows, and I want to click on the date and then remove. I also want to get rid of the years and also get rid of the quarters. I only want to keep up with the months. And if we go back to the pivot table, now I can see January, February, March, April to December. And yeah, this is exactly what I need. However, we need to be mindful here because as I have 3 different years into my dataset, 2024, 25, and 26, maybe it's a good idea to filter the dataset to only display one specific year. Because if you tell me that in May you roughly sold $92,000, it's not that correct, because $9,000 refers to the year of 2024 plus 25 plus 26. So maybe we can separate those values. And to do it, let me go here to the pivot table analyze and then insert slicer. The slicer that I can insert can be based on the years. Here is the information, just check and then go OK. Something very cool about the slicer in Excel is whenever we click in any option here in the slicer, the pivot tables are going to automatically update. But as we can see, only the pivot table here, the third one to the right, is being automatically updated. So how can I connect this pivot table right here to, or this slicer, to all the pivot tables that I have? I can right click in this slicer and then go to report connections. I can check everything and then OK. Yeah, that's it. Now everything is working. But I didn't finish yet. So what I can do is can create one more pivot table or maybe 2 more pivot tables and so forth. Something that I think is very important here is we already have the total sold per month, and now we also can filter based on the years. Another information that I can append here maybe can be the average margin. So let me take the average, the margin, click, hold, and drag, and drop within the values area. Now I have the sum of total and the sum of margin, but I don't want to have a sum of margin, but an average. So we can go back to the sum of margin, click, and then go to value field settings. Let me choose here average and then OK. And the value got updated for us. Let me select everything and change the format to the percentage and also increase the decimal places to have more preciseness. And let's check if everything is working here. Yeah, everything is working properly. I know that we can create many different types of analysis using the pivot tables in Excel. However, I want to keep it simple and I don't want to make the video too long. However, I will also want to create here 2 more pivot tables. The next one can be how much the total sold per salesperson. So let me take the second one as example, right click and copy, and then go here to the right click and then paste. Instead of using the states, I can click on the state and then remove the field, and I can stick with the salesperson and drop within the rows. Yeah, that's it. Let me increase the size of the columns, the width. Okay, now let's go to the last analysis that we can create, copy and paste, and this one can be based on the products. So let me take the products, drop here in the rows, get rid of the salesperson, and that's it. Let me increase the width of those columns, and we're done. Something that can be very interesting here to do with the last pivot table is we can organize from the biggest one from the largest value to the smallest one. And as we can notice, the second to last is actually smaller than the last one. So we need to properly organize this data set. What we can do is we can click on the filter and then go to more sort options. And I can sort this data set as ascending and then sum of total. And then click OK. I know that, let me close this right panel. I know that the option that I choose is going to do actually the opposite. The lowest value, or the smallest one at the top, and the largest one at the bottom. Actually the opposite that was I said before. However, the chart in Excel is going to invert this order right here. So if we actually use the lowest one to the largest one, it's going to work properly in the chart, because the chart is going to reverse the order that we create here in the table. But anyway, let's say if you want to actually organize from the largest one to the lowest one, you can click in the filter, more sort options, and then descending Z to A, and then OK. Yeah, that's it. OK. But anyway, now we can start creating the dashboard itself, because all the analysis that we need is already here in this part of the spreadsheet. But let's move on and create a new sheet, because the way we can create separately the dashboard. Right click and then rename. I'm going to give it a name such as dashboard. To get started, we can go back to the pivot table and take here the slicer. But before we do it, let's see if the slicer is working. Yeah, it's working. Right click, cut, go to the dashboard, right click, and then we can paste the slicer. There is some informations in the slicer that I don't want to use, such as the header and also those blank buttons right here underneath. So we can get rid of those informations. Simply right click and then go to slicer settings. Let me get rid of the header and also hide items with no data. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Let me decrease here the width, make it a little bit, decrease the height. But I also want to make the buttons a little bit thicker, so I can go to the slicer option. Instead of using height as 0.26, maybe we can use 0.7 or 0.5, 4. Yeah, I think 4 is okay. And if you go to the slicer, you can check that you have many different styles to choose, such as orange, blue, yellow, greenish color, and so forth. However, let's say none of those styles are the one that I'm looking for. So you can actually customize and create your own style, like the one that I did here. And to easily create this customizable slicer style, you can click here in more options and then go to new slicer style. Okay, so click in this option. Then you're going to open up a window that looks like this. So you can go to the first option, whole slicer, format, and as the font, you can choose bold and then 14. And as the fill, you don't need to change anything, and also don't need to change anything in the border. Okay, now let's go to the third option, selected item with data, format, and then as the fill, I want to click in more colors, and I want to choose this pink color right here, and then okay. And as the font, will not change anything. Okay, now I'm going to this option right here, hover it, select item with data, format, fill, more colors, and I want to choose a blue color. Okay, okay. Now the last option, hovered, unselected item with data, format, and again the same blue color, this one right here. Okay, okay, and okay. But you're going to notice, even though you change and create and customize it your own style for the slicer, the format is not going to change. So you need to again go to the slicer and choose the style that you create. Simple as that. Now we have this new style as the slicer. One more thing that we can do is, let's say I want to add some borders to my slicer, but the borders in Excel are very sharp with a 9-degree angle. I want to do something different, maybe with a rounded corner. So let's go to insert, shapes, and then I want to choose a rectangle with rounded corners. Click, click, hold, and drag to make the area over the slicer. You can also use the arrow keys to move with more preciseness the shape. You can make it sharper or rounder. Maybe I want to use like this. Let me bring to the right. Okay. And I want to go here to shape effects to input some shadows. As the shape outline, I'm going to skip for now, but shape fill, I want to use a white one. And as we can notice, this is the background that we've created. The next change that we can do is about the outline. Maybe we can do something different here. Use a gradient, maybe a pinkish color at the top and a bluish color at the bottom. So with different color scales. Let me right click on this shape and go to format shape. Because here to the right I have many options, such as fill and line. I'm going to keep up with line and I want to use a gradient line. Excel is going to create many gradient stops, but I only want to use two. One in the left and one at the right. So let me select the one in the middle, get rid of, and also the one in the middle again and get rid of. The one to the left, I want to use again the same pinkish color that we used before. I think it's this one right here. Okay. And the one to the right, I want to use again the same bluish color. That is this blue right here, I think. Okay. Yeah. As the width of the outline, maybe we can do something thicker, such as 3. And then I can close this panel and let's check the result. I think it's very, very good. But the problem is I can't see the buttons. So we need to take this shape right here and move backwards. And to do it is very easy. Let me right click in this shape and then send to back. Yeah, very simple. And again, with the arrow keys, we can move to the left or to the right. We can also increase here the width to fit perfectly within the slicer. And I think it's okay now. This is our slicer option in Excel. Now it's time to go back to the pivot tables and to start and to create our charts. I think we can start with, of course, we're going to create a different chart for all the pivot tables that we have, but maybe we can start with the first one, because let's start from the first to the last one. As the first one, I don't think we need to use a chart to only display one single information. Maybe what we can do here is a card that is going to show the number, and at the top maybe the header, such as total sold, for example. So only one card to show only one information. We don't need to create a chart for this situation. And to create a card in Excel, we can extract automatically the value that we have right here. The problem is we can't do it using a pivot table. So let me go here to the cell at the top above, and then equal sign, I want to reference the cell where I have the value, that is A4, and then enter. Now, instead of using this cell as the reference for our card, we can use this cell right here. So let's do it. Let's go back to the dashboard, and I want to insert a shape that can be, again, a rectangle with rounded corners. Click, hold, and drag to make the area, maybe like this. Let me bring this a little bit down like this, and the slicer a little bit in. Into this card right here, I can right click and then go to format shape. We can first start with the effects, go into shadow and choose here shadow, and then we can go to fill and line, get rid of the line, and as the fill we can use a gradient fill and use again the same gradient as before that we did use to the outline of our slicer. But if you have some problems to create this gradient again, you only need to do is get rid of everything, all the gradient stops, but one to the left, one to the right. The one in the left is the pinkish one. The one to the right is the bluish one. Very easy. And if we go here, we already have our design. But I want to make some changes here. Maybe I can take the pinkish one and maybe move it here to the left and the bluish one to the right. So I need to rotate the scale. So we can go here to the angle, and instead of using 90, maybe 0 is what we are looking for. Let me close this panel And yeah, I think it's okay right now. And to input the header, I need to do something different here. I want to input a header just at the top. And to do it, let's create here a new shape using a rectangle, but this time a rectangle with the top corners rounded. Click, hold, and drag. And now we can increase the roundness or make it sharper. Let's use in the middle, in between, maybe like this. Okay. Let me right click in this shape and go to format shape. I want to use no line and as the fill, solid fill. Maybe we can use a dark gray color and as the transparency 30%. Enter. Let me close this panel. And yeah, that's it. Now let me click 1, 2 times within this shape. And I want to create here the header such as total sold. I can select everything. I can increase the font size, maybe 14, put everything in bold, align horizontally and vertically, and we're done. But we need, of course, to retrieve as result the value that we have in the pivot table and input right here within this shape. So let me click in the shape and go here to the formula bar, click equal sign, go back to the pivot table and select the first cell, okay? It's very important and we need to be mindful. You cannot select the pivot table itself. You need to select the cell above and then enter. Now, anytime that you have a number in the pivot table, the number is going to appears within the shape. Let me increase the font size maybe to 24. I want to align at the bottom and align at the right. Maybe a little bit bigger, put everything in bold. And maybe we can change the font to a gray one. Yeah, let's see if it's working when I use the slicer. Yeah, it's working. As we can notice, automatically the card is going to update whenever we change the criteria here in the ears. Now let's go back to the pivot table and create our second chart. That can be the map chart in Excel. But we have also a problem with the map chart in Excel when we are using pivot tables. We cannot use a map chart directly pulling data from the pivot table. So take a look here. If I select this pivot table or just click within the data and then go to insert and try to use a map chart, I'm going to click. Excel is not going to allow me to create this chart because I'm using a pivot table. So a very easy solution that we can do is, let me input here, let me click in the column E and then right click, insert a new column, and I want to do it again. Okay, now in this new column, in the same row as our first information, equal sign, let me retrieve the same information that I have in the first cell, that is cell C4, and then enter. At the bottom right corner of the cell, I can click, hold, and drag down to make sure we can cut the result throughout all the rows, and I can also click, hold, and drag to the right to retrieve the values in the second column. Now we can select this new data set and go to insert and then maps and map. Yeah, that's it. Now it's working. Let me take this map right here, right click and then cut, go to the dashboard, right click and then I can paste. Let's check if it's working. 2026, 25, 24. Yeah, it's kind working. We can increase the visibility of the chart by getting rid of the areas that we are not using. So let me first of all start with the header, the title, click, get rid of this legend here to the right, click and get rid of. Now let's click within the chart and then right click and go to format plot area. Here to the right we can, no, it's not that option. Let's go here to this down arrow and choose series 1. And then we can go here to series options, and as the map area, we can use only regions with data. Because that way we have more focus only in the regions that we have data. But the problem is, if I ask you what is the total in the, let's say, in the new Mexico, you don't know because there's no value at all. And you can not even know. So maybe we can go here to chart design, add chart element, data label, and then show. Because that way we can see the values. But Plus, I also want to add the name or the name of the state. So clicking on the value, and then here to the right, we can go to the last option, label options, and also category name. We can activate this option. And instead of using a comma to separate the options, we can use a new line like this. Now it's much better. Another design is that we can do for this chart is we can click on the chart itself to select everything and go to effects, shadow, choose the first option, go here to the fill and line. As the border, I can use a gradient line, and again use the same gradient as before. The one in the left is going to be pink, the one at the right is going to be blue, and yeah, I think that's it. Or one thing that is very important is the width. We can increase to 3. So now it's 1.75. Now I have 3. Yeah, now it's perfect. Now let's click within the area of the chart one more time. Okay, as you can notice, we can change throughout the areas, but this is not what I need. So let's click again to select the entire chart, but in the area within the chart. Now let's go back here to this panel, and as the chart options, let me change to series 1. Let me go to this last option, series options, series color, and instead of using 2, I want to use 3 gradient colors. The lowest value maybe can be the pinkish color that we are using before. The middle value can be a yellowish color, and the maximum one can be maybe a green color or a bluish one. Yeah, I think it's okay. So the lowest value is pink. The ones in between are going to be yellow, green, and orange, and the largest value is going to be blue. However, you can also change the design using different colors right here, different scales. Okay, so be free to use the scales that you like the most. Now what I want to do is I want to input some shadows into each one of those tiles, and I also want to create a different color as the border. But to do it, if you click within a state, you can see that you're only going to select one single state. So let's say I have here California selected, so I want to click again in the same state. Now I select everything, and if I go here to the colors, borders, for example, and choose solid line, as you can notice, I can add a line to all the states at once. So this is exactly what I need to do. But before we change the outline, let's go here to the effects, shadow, and choose a shadow to use like this, because that way we can separate basically one state to another, and it's easier to see. Let's go to the colors again, borders. As the solid line, I want to use black, and maybe as the width we can use 1, or we can use maybe white. Let's check how it's going to work. I think white is very interesting. So let me close this panel, and I think the area chart is done. And whenever we change here and use the slicer, as you can notice, the values within the map chart is going to automatically be updated for us. I don't know where I can leave this chart, but maybe I can leave it right here, increase a little bit the area of the chart, bring a little bit down, a little bit to the left. Now we can go back to the pivot tables. The first one is done, the second one is done. The third one, we have something interesting, because it's the only pivot table where we have 1, 2, 3 different informations. For this pivot table, maybe we can use a column chart coupled with a line chart. The line can be used as the percentage, the margin, and the columns can be used as the total sold. So let me click within this pivot table and go to insert, and then column chart, column chart. And I know that I said that I need to use column with lines, but wait a minute, because we're gonna do it. So let me right click within this chart and then go to change chart type. In this last option I have combo, and this is exactly what I need. The total is going to be a column chart, and the average margin is going to be a line. But the thing that is important is in this checkbox right here, secondary axis. Just click, and yeah, that's it. Okay, and we're done. Basically, this is how we can couple different charts in Excel. Another thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of those gray buttons that we have. So let me go here to the field buttons and then hide all. Yeah, I can also get rid of the legend to the right. Now I can right click in this chart and go to cut, go back to the dashboard, right clicking somewhere, and then paste. This chart, I want to do something maybe different. Let me bring it down like this, bring a little bit to the right. As the line, let's start with the line, the design of the line. But let me change here and see if everything is working. Yeah, everything is working. Let me right click in the line and then go to Format Data Series. Let's first of all start with a effect, such as a shadow. And as the fill align, I can use line as solid line and a dark blue. And as the width, I can use 3. And as the dash type, I can use the third option, square dot. Now let's go to the marker. The marker is actually a little point that helps us differentiate one category to another. So let me go here to mark options, built in. I can use a circle one with the size of 8. As the fill, I can use red. And as the border, solid line, I can use the same dark blue as before. And as the width, maybe 3 again. Yeah, let me close and let's see how it's going. I think it's okay. I think it's very good now, the line, this design right here. Now the change that we can do is with the column chart. So let me right click in the column and then go to Format Data Series. And I can go to Effects, put a shadow again, fill and line. As the fill, maybe we can use a solid fill. And the same blue as we used before, the light one, and the border, solid line, and again the same light blue. And as the width, this number needs to be very, very larger, such as 12. Enter. Yeah, now it's okay. Let me close. The chart is very much more interesting now, but the next thing that we can do is about the background, or more specific, about the border of the outline of the chart. We can do something similar to the chart, the area chart that we have. So let me right click in this chart, in the area, and then Format Chart Area. And I want to use a shadow again. And as the border, solid line or gradient line, and use the same gradient as before. The one in the left is going to be pinkish, and the one to the right is going to be blue. And as the width, 3. And Excel, at least in this version that I'm using, has this very special option, rounded corners. So if you also have this option, I think it's very good to enable. But if you don't have this option into your Excel version, don't worry, because it's just maybe a small touch to the chart. So yeah, that's it. This is my final chart result. And as you can notice, everything is working. Now we can move back to the pivot table, and the next information that we have is about the total sold per salesperson. So let me click within this option, and maybe we can use again a column chart. We could actually use a pie chart, a donut chart, but I think a column chart is going to work very well in this situation. So insert, column chart, and column chart. And again, I want to get rid of those gray buttons, and also the header, the legend in the right, the values to the left, and also those grid lines. So let me start with the values to the left, and then the header, and then the legend, and then the grid line. Now let's go again to Pivot Chart Analyze and get rid of the field buttons. But something that we need to be mindful is, because we get rid of the values to the left, we don't know anymore how much each one of those columns represents or correspond. So let me, before we do or add the values, right click, cut, go to the dashboard, and then I want to paste right here. Yeah. Now let's go to design, and then add chart element, data labels, outside and, because that way we can see the values above each one of those columns. And let's talking about the columns, right click on the columns, format data serious, and then I want to input some shadows, and as the fill I want to use again the same blue as before, and as the border again the same blue, but the width is going to be 3. And one more thing that we can do here maybe can be, let's say, click on the area of the chart and then go to effects, shadow, and then to fill, border, gradient line, and again use the same gradient as before. Pink at the left and blue at the right, like this, and increase the width to 3 and use rounded corners. I don't think the columns are the way I like, so I want to click again in the columns and go to border. Maybe I can increase the width a little bit more, maybe 12. Yeah, now I think it's okay. Let me close this panel. Much better now. I can see all the salespersons that I have and how much each one of those salespersons sold. And if I change the slicer, as we can notice, those values are going to be automatically updated for us. Now let's go back to the pivot table and create our last chart. Now it can be a different chart, maybe a bar chart, because the bar chart can help us visualize a top 10, a top 5, a top 3, or I mean, in other words, the largest value at the top and the smallest one at the bottom. So let's go to insert and then column chart, bar chart, like this. But the problem is, as I said before in the beginning of when we was creating the pivot tables, the chart in Excel is going to invert the order, but we need to change. The largest one needs to be at the top and the smallest one needs to be at the bottom. So right click within the names that you have to the left and go to format axis. You can choose this option, categories in reverse order. Simple as that. Now you solve the problem. Let me close this panel. Let me get rid of the legend, get rid of the grid line, the header, the values, and also go to field buttons and hide all. Right click, cut, go to the dashboard, right click somewhere and then paste. I want to do something similar that I did before to the column chart. And we can start with the area, right click, and then go to format chart area. I want to use as border a gradient line, and again the same gradient as before, pink to the left and blue to the right, and as the width 3 and rounded corners. We can also go to effects, input some shadows. Now we can click in the columns and go, or in the bars, and also use some shadows. Go to the fill, use the light blue, and as the border, again the light blue too, but the width we can increase a lot, such as 12, and then enter. Let me close and let's see what it's going to look like. I think it's good enough, but we need to input the values, because tell me, how much did the protein powder sell? We don't know, because there's no value to tell us. So let me click in the chart, and then we can go to design, add chart element, and then data label, or sorry, here, data labels, inside base. I think it's going to look very good. Let me click in these values. I can increase maybe to 12, put everything in bold, and maybe white, or 14 as the size. Yeah, I think it's okay, but the problem is the value, the number is not properly aligned in the middle of the column or the bar. So we can right click in this value and go to format data label, and yeah, I want to use inside base, but I want to change the position. So let me go here to size and properties, alignment, and resize shape to fit text, no. Allow text to overflow shape, no. And wrap text in shape, no. Let me close this panel. Now we have the design that we need, and everything is working. So basically this is our dashboard, but I didn't finish yet, because I think there's more details that we can do that is going to help us have a dashboard that is going to look more beautiful, such as going to view and then get rid of the grid lines. And that way we're not going to have anymore the lines separating the columns and the rows. And I'm going to pause the video to make some little adjustments in the dashboard, such as maybe I can take this map chart and move to the right, take this bar one and move up and so forth. I'm going to see here what I think fits the best, and I'm gonna show you the final result in just 1 second. Okay, this is the displayment or the arrangement that I think fits the best here in the screen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, if you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, show me down below, and I see you tomorrow because every day has a new video. So I see you there.